Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Can you all hear me okay in the back?
Yes.
I apologize for the sound. I don't want to close all the doors because I don't want people to think they're in the wrong place, but you probably hear some whistles and things like that coming from the wrestling match. But thank you very much for coming and joining us this evening. In this meeting, we'll be talking about transitions between grade levels for our current students. And let you know how each grade level is set up and what choices students and you as the parents will be making for course offerings for next year. I want to start with some introductions. Blair, if you want to go ahead and forward. And one of our assistant principals is back in the tech booth, that's Blair Williams, and she's helping me drive. We had some technical issues before the meeting. So she's helping us out up there. Mitzi Macaluso is here in front. She's an assistant principal of ours. Jessica Gates is not here this evening, but her partner in crime, Carrie Dante, will be the 8th grade counselor for next year. Angie Parker is here tonight. She'll be the 7th grade counselor next year. And Krista Hoffman will be the 6th grade counselor. And she's hoping that I'll give her a big speaking spot tonight. And my name is Sean Conner, principal here at ZMS. And again, I'm really thankful that you came out on a February evening on Valentine's Day week to join us. One of the things that people often wonder why we're meeting in February about next year's school year is that this is the time of year when we start thinking about staffing for next year and we start building the master schedule for next year. So even though it seems like an odd time to be selecting those things, this is when we typically have to do it in order to have it ready for next school year. I mentioned that we'll be talking about our transitions from one grade level to the next. There are more and more 5 through 8 middle schools across the state now, and oftentimes we're visited by other schools who are getting ready to go to that model, and they come and they visit us and they want to know how it is that we structure things, because what most middle schools do, whether they're 6, 7, 8 or 5, 6, 7, 8, is kind of a one-size-fits-all approach, which we don't believe in. We think that kids are significantly different over the course of those 4 years. And if I could give a kind of a promotion for the way that we're set up, I think that it's very helpful for this time where kids are in rapid change, physically, emotionally, mentally, that they have a home base for a nice long period of time. And so the fact that we have kiddos here from 5th grade all the way through 8th grade, I think it really is helpful for them. I have this perspective after having been a middle school principal with just 7th and 8th grade in a building that was fed by 5th and 6th graders who were 2 years in one building and then they came for 2 years in another one. They were always in transition, and it was really harder to get to know the kids and harder for them to get to know their environment and things like that. So, as I mentioned, we try to change or to treat our grade levels differently as they go through our school. And in grade 5, we work really hard to make it very similar to what you might find in elementary school, where we have our humanities block, where we have our language arts and our social studies, and that lasts for 3 periods during their day. And then the math and science teacher is the same person. So for 5 out of their 7 periods, for all of their core academic classes, they only see 2 adults. We're very similar in that model in grade 6. So as you can see, grade 5, 43% with 1 teacher, 71% of their day with 2 teachers. In grade 6, the only part that's different is that math and science teacher is not the same person. So it's kind of a gradual release. So now we've got 3 adults for our core academics, and then we have our exploratory and fine arts classes. In the 7th and 8th grade, it's much more of a secondary schedule, so the kids have 7 periods during their day. The one piece of the middle school philosophy that you'll find is the fact that we have a teaming structure, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. But in 7th and 8th grade, the kids have a different class every period, and they go from one teacher to the next throughout that day. So what you see behind me now is essentially the same thing, looking at it a little differently. If a color represents an adult in a child's life, or in a child's academic day, that's what that looks like. So again, the humanities in 5th grade, and then the science and math, that same person, whereas in the 6th grade, it's 2 different people. Again, just as I said, the humanities, so 3 periods, those are language, arts, and social studies standards that the students get there. We have science and math. Music are the 3, the students have 3 options for music. They can have orchestra, they can have chorus, or they can have band. So one of those 3. The exploratories, we'll talk about in detail here in a second. And then all 4 of our grade levels have PRT, or what we call personal responsibility time. Grades 5 and 6 have a little bit of extra time for recess. And grade 5 in particular has the most, and then we scale that back as kids come through. Most of the 7th and 8th graders are really going out to play at the end of their lunch, as opposed to having a separate period for that. So the exploratories, I mentioned a second ago, we have 3 or 4, depending on what you call PE and health. So all students have Project Lead the Way. All students have art, and they have 9 weeks of each of those courses. And then they have health and phys ed. Those are integrated, so they have the same teacher for health and phys ed, and they have that for a semester. And as I mentioned a second ago, the music choices are orchestra, choir, and band. If you are going from grade 5 to grade 6, your choices don't change during that year. So most of the time, people stay with the same choices that they've had. And if you recall, as 5th graders, what they were really choosing was their music class. Most students stay with that same music class as they go from grade 5 to grade 6. They do not have to. If you wanted to change from one music class to another, you are certainly welcome to have your child do that. Personal opinion, and I think the music teachers would agree with me, I think it's easier to go from an instrumental to a choral class than the other way around. And so keep in mind, if your child was in choir in 5th grade and then wants to play the tuba as a 6th grader, that might be a harder transition than going from the tuba to choir. But you're certainly welcome to do that, and we do have students each year that make a change as far as that's concerned. I didn't ask at the beginning, and I should have, how many of you are here because of a child that is a current 5th grader? Okay, lots. How many with the current 6th graders? All right, current 7th graders? All right, so we've got a smattering of just about every grade level. Great. Next slide. So as I mentioned a few minutes ago, we do have team teaching in grades 7 and 8. We used to have math on our core academic teams as well, but we have multiple layers of math, and it became difficult to schedule, in fact, impossible to schedule without cross-teaming, which kind of defeated the purpose. So we took math off the team. So science and social studies and language arts are the 3 on the team. And so if you're wondering out there, what in the world does that mean, their team? That means those 3 teachers have the exact same set of students. It helps them in their planning. It helps them support students. So if a child is having difficulty in social studies, the social studies teacher might say something to the language arts teacher, and the language arts teacher might say, well, actually, what works for me is this. And so it doesn't seem like it's that big of a deal, but it really helps the teachers assist one another in working with students and being able to support them the best. So we have science, social studies, and language arts as part of that team. And then the rest of the day in grades 7 and 8 is math. It's one of our 4 language classes, a fine arts class, which is a little different than the way we do music class in grade 5 and 6. Exploratories, those are also choice-based in grades 7 and 8, as opposed to the way we do those in 5 and 6. And then, as I mentioned earlier, all 4 of our grade levels have a PRT. So the fine arts, the difference for grade 7 than what we have in grades 5 and 6 is that in this mix of this choice, it's not just the 3 music classes. Many of our students just continue with the same music classes that they have. But some of our students choose to have an art class every day all year instead of the music class that they have every day all year. Excuse me. If you do take the year-long art, then in a second I'm going to talk about exploratories. You can't also take an exploratory art class. You can't double dip in art, but art does become one of your everyday choices as we lump those into the fine arts. The exploratory classes, as I mentioned, there's some choice here as well. So Project Lead the Way for our 7th and 8th graders it's a semester-long course. So in grade 7, it's flight and space, and in grade 8, it's robotics. Again, like I said, that is a semester-long course. The general art is, instead of a 9-week course, also a semester course, and then phys ed and health. So all students take phys ed and health all 4 years. So what you're left with is really a choice between Project Lead the Way and art. And those of you who are really smart and always one step ahead, you figured out that if you're taking the year-long art, you really don't have a choice here, right? If you're taking the year-long art course, then you're going to take the Health PE one semester and the Project Lead the Way the second semester. Okay. We have 3 languages here at ZMS. So we have French, we have Spanish, and we have Mandarin or Chinese. There's a slight difference between these languages, and that is, and Blair, this is probably on the next slide. In Spanish, we have a lot higher number, and so we're able to do some things there that we can't do in the other 2 languages just because of volume. So in Spanish, we have what we call 1A and 1B. So for students who are not strong language arts students, and by strong, if your child is earning C's or below, then probably the best fit for them would be a 1A and 1B. And what we mean by 1A and 1B is that over a 2-year period, they're taking one level of the language. So at the end of the 8th grade year, they have completed Spanish 1. In French and Chinese, we do not have that A and B option. So those are open to anyone, but they're recommended to be taken by students who are strong language arts students. So that would be the level 1 as a 7th grader, level 2 as an 8th grader. The way that I would encourage you to determine, well, should my child be in 1A, 1B, or 1 and 2, would be just to think about how does my child typically perform in language arts classes, because we want it to be an academic fit as opposed to making a decision for any other reason. It's important to point out that the level 2 course of French or Mandarin or Spanish, so the level 2 course is something that will show up on the high school transcript, and students do in a level 2 course earn high school credit. So that's something just to be aware of before that starts. If you've got a student who's going into 7th grade, that's not something that I would worry about now. But just to be aware that the level 2 classes are something that will end up on a high school transcript and be part of the student's grade point average. Power School scheduling. We're going to talk about how you go about signing up for these courses, and then we will entertain any questions that you all have.
Hi. So after the meeting tonight, at Power School, the window will open up to do class registration. It's really easy. We'll send out directions tomorrow. But basically, if you're on your child's Power School account, there's on the left-hand side, it'll say class registration. You can click on that, and it'll give you the opportunity to select the course request for the exploratory, the fine art, and the world language. And this will only be for 6th grade parents and 7th grade parents. If you're a 5th grade parent, your student will automatically be placed in the music they're currently in. And if you would like to make a change with that, you would just get a hold of the 5th grade counselor, which is Mrs. Hoffman right over here. So again, Power School will be open this evening. It's really easy to do. The core academic classes will be kind of transferred over. You won't need to select those. Your kids will know how to do this and they'll figure it out very easily. So if you could just make sure to double check what they've selected, because they'll probably select before maybe even you do. The scheduling window will kind of close. I'm not sure of the exact time, but we'll put it in the email that it'll be Friday the 14th. So have a few days to get those things in, and then if you have any questions or anything, have a hard time connecting for some reason with a question, you just need to get a hold of one of the counselors with any questions for scheduling outside that window. And then we will be around, the other counselors and myself, after this meeting concludes. So if you have any individual questions for your child, please seek us out.
All right, Blair, I want to make sure, wanted to make sure I didn't have any other slides that we didn't talk about. What questions do you have for us? Yes.
If a seventh grader takes Spanish 1 in seventh grade, and then it's too much of a stretch to do 2 in eighth grade.
So the question is, if the child takes Spanish 1 as a seventh grader and it was too much of a stretch, what's the way out of that? And I want to underscore how rare that is. I mean, it's a course where people, and your question, number one, is a great one, and number two is one that is typically asked year in and year out, because it's something that people don't know a whole lot about typically. But our students are very successful in our classes. If it did occur where a student was in level 1 and they were in over their heads, we have occasionally then chosen 1B for a student in that second year. So they go from 1 and then they take 1B, which kind of gives them the second half of Spanish 1 to kind of bolster what they didn't get the first year. And I know I said this twice already, but that is a rare occurrence, but it does happen occasionally. Yes.
How much guidance / oversight / encouragement should parents be giving in this process? As a concrete example, I have a very strong and I think well-informed opinion about whether my child should be taking art or music, but I get the impression that if I express this opinion, she's going to choose the other one. So what are we supposed to do here?
So for those of you in the back, how much guidance should a parent give for this course selection? I feel really strongly that parents need to have the opportunity to be a part of this decision. And the reason that we have this meeting, because there are schools where they march the kid to a lab and say, okay, kids, sign up for your courses, and maybe parents don't even know what it was that they signed up for. When it comes to what instrument is being played in your home, one night after the next, and things like that, I really think parents should be part of that decision. That's how, like in my family, we talked about it. I mean, my wife and I didn't say, you must do this, and we didn't necessarily feel all that strongly about it, but we wanted it to be a family decision. And so I guess that would be what I recommend. You're right at this age level, and every child is different, right? You have some that are always 100% in line with mom and dad. You have some that don't even want to talk to them, but what'd you do today? That kind of thing. So you know your child best and how best to approach that, but I do think that it's a family decision. Yes.
Can you talk a little bit about how the liability classes are different in seventh grade than the other curriculum?
Talk about the high ability classes and how they are different. Standards-wise, it really depends on what the academic content is. Language arts, for example, you might be surprised about the standards in grades 5 through grade 8 and how they're essentially identical. So certainly level of content that students are reading, expectations and things like that are significantly different. And the class flows differently. The questions that are asked are different, that kind of thing. In math, the curriculum is just completely different. right? So whereas in language arts, it's the exact same curriculum, or it's the same standards, I should say. In math, they are different, and the content is different. So it kind of depends on what subject area it is. Social studies and science, the curriculum is not different. It's just kind of a different atmosphere. You know, in the class, we do extend probably, as far as science is concerned, the places they are more disparate would be in grade 8, where some of that math leads in to the chemistry and the physics. Where in the other classes, when kids aren't at that algebra level, it does less so. And I don't know if I've done justice to your question, if I've answered it or not, but. So in math, the course, the 8th grade course is honors algebra. So yeah, it definitely is algebraic, obviously. And we, you're going to find geometry throughout in all of the courses, even the algebra, you know, will build in algebra into the geometry, you know, in an algebra course, where you wouldn't necessarily see that elsewhere, but so again, you'll see geometry throughout. So honors geometry would be the course beyond the 8th grade honors algebra. Sure.
Are those languages offered in high school as well, Spanish, French?
Those are the same 3 languages that we offer in high school, and they all go through level 6. Yep. Yes? There is, yeah, and I didn't talk about the different levels, but those extend all the way through. So the regular, the transition, and earlier I kind of alluded to it when I was talking about why math is not on a team. So both the fact that there are 3 levels, and because sometimes kids find themselves a year or 2 ahead, even of the high ability, it's been difficult for us to have on an academic team. But yes, all 3 of those levels carry all the way through. Yeah. No, I cannot. And not because I'm keeping secrets, but because that's something that, that honestly, what I opened with, saying, why are we here? So we will set up both staffing, so like, do I need, in Scienceville, we're always growing, so it's never going to be fewer teachers, but might I need another teacher? When we added, for example, an art teacher last year, so if I had answered that question last year, it would have been the wrong answer because we added staff. And so one of the things that changes the art teachers pretty significantly is how many students sign up for year-long art. Because if you think about it, so a 9-week course, which is what we have in art in grades 5 and 6, I can, in one period, with one teacher, take care of 4 sections. Whereas if I have a year-long art with 1 section, that's the equivalent. So I've got 25 kids versus 100. So at this point, I can't begin to tell you that. So as I mentioned at the outset, we have several staff members that are here, and I know that you'll make their night if you have a personal question that they're thinking, I came all the way here, I hope there's a question that I can answer. So if you have a personal question that maybe you want to ask within the larger group, please approach us and ask away. And otherwise, thank you very much for coming out this evening. I hope you have a great evening. Thanks for coming.